first magic Cortland Sutton catch of the year. You know, we got a little bit spoiled with it last year, having seen Cortland Sutton just, you know, tiptoe magic and just doing what Cortland Sutton does, which is just play some really great, amazing football. But before we go any further, let's get into the chat here. Say hello to some of the people already here. Nasalik85 says, hello from Canada's Great White North. Nasalik, thank you so much for joining, my friend. Hope you're enjoying yourself. And we also have Bryce Maines. It says, can you see this? Let's go Broncos. Woo! That's right. Let's go Broncos, baby. Johnny Baki, the boss, saying, what's up, Orange and Blue crew? What's up, Johnny Baki? Thank you so much for joining us here on the show. It's great to see people on social media here in the chat. If you guys are listening to us, I forgot to mention it. Anybody listening to us after the fact on all audio podcasts, wherever it is you guys are listening to, please make sure you like and subscribe, comment, send us a notification, 5-star reviews, wherever it is, so we know you guys are tuning in. So as you see there on the screen, subscribe, share, comment, like, all the good stuff for the Orange and Blue Network. I don't know how that happened. And also on the MHRT Network, make sure you like and comment, subscribe on their network as well. I honestly don't know how I did that. I don't think I did. But it's kind of crazy. Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, now I see. Wasn't paying attention first. But anyways, the offense is starting to look really good. I'm really happy with the direction it's going in. And if we can continue building on what the vision that Sean Payton has, then I think that the Broncos are really in store to shock a whole lot of people. Okay, let's be honest. Unfortunately, already in the week 4, we've already had a giant setback, and it's the main title of today's show, which is losing Alex Singleton to ACL tear. Which, I mean, I was watching the highlights earlier, and I honestly couldn't see where that even happened. Like, I mean, the man looked just like as great as he normally looks, you know? So maybe I missed something. Maybe I don't have that keen eye I used to have or think I have, you know, take your pick. But it's kind of crazy how like, I mean, it feels like every time the Broncos get like a ball of luck rolling, except with the exception of the 5-win streak last year, like just something comes along and just takes a giant dump on it, you know? And now I know that the Broncos did go off and sign Quan Alexander, and I forget the name of the other. I don't know if they signed. They got 2 on the practice squad. I forget the name of the other gentleman. So hopefully they fit in the Vance Joseph scheme really well. Will they be Alex Singleton caliber? We have yet to see. But if there are any flaws in that inside linebacker core, then this is definitely a glaring weakness that opposing offenses going forward are really going to hone in on. So Vance Joseph kind of has his work cut out for him in terms of trying to find a solution, but it couldn't have happened to a worse guy. Let's be honest, folks. Everybody here in Broncos country loves Alex Singleton. I wouldn't say it's time to panic yet because it's only week 4, but it is a big blow to the Broncos defense. And as we know, they've been playing really great football. The last 3 games, the Broncos defense have been keeping the Broncos not only just in the game, but keeping them from being blown out. Now, as you guys may or may not remember or don't want to remember for that fact, because I don't blame you if you don't, a year ago, week 3, the Broncos defense got blown out in Miami. It was just kind of like a turnstile type of game. And going into week 4 was when the 0-3 game between the Bears and the Broncos, which I was at. That was the game I was at, and that was the turning point for the Broncos, was that game. So it seems like that game for the Broncos was the turning point, them beating the Bears. So the question, I guess, for Broncos country, or for the Broncos in general at that, is this the turning point for the Broncos themselves? Now, when I say turning point, obviously, as much as we want to say Super Bowl, folks, unfortunately, this is not a Super Bowl ready team yet. yet. The goal for the Broncos, mainly before anything and all things, is to be a playoff contending team. And that's something that they have. That's the first mountain they have to climb up first, because we have to remember when the playoffs start, it's the best of the best, regardless if it's a wild card. I know a lot of people have been kind of crapping on wild card teams the last few years. I've been hearing it from all walks of life. And I really don't think that, because there have been teams, or appreciate that, I should say, because there are teams that have actually won the Super Bowl coming off of a wild card team, or made it to the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, in a few instances, or made it even close. So underestimating a team is the worst thing you can do. Your opponent, I should say, is the worst thing you could do, because as we saw, for example, the Raiders and the Panthers game, like everybody thought that the Raiders were going to cream we're gonna cream or beat up the Panthers, and it was the opposite reaction, or whatever you want to call it. The opposite happened. Let's just say that it was just the Panthers laying it into the Raiders. Now, any team that beats up on our division rival is okay in my book. But that does kind of worry me a little bit thinking about it, because I'm going to be at the Carolina Broncos game at the end of October. And I really do hope that what we have on paper lives up to what the Panthers are going to be bringing to Denver. Now, I am excited on the other hand, because it's going to be some great competitive football. And it's not going to be one team walking over the other. So I am really excited about that. I can't wait to see it. And speaking of which, here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Dreamweaver saying, LFG, Broncos should make Nate Hackett cry after the game, even with Singleton out. Now, that's actually a great point that Jay brings up here. This is a revenge of the revenge Nathaniel Hackett game, or another chance at a Hackett Bowl, compared to last year. But the stakes are a little bit harder and a little bit different than they were last year. I was going to save this part for the end of the show, but I guess we can talk about it a little bit. And that's just that the Jets defense from last year isn't as formidable as this year. Meanwhile, the Jets offense isn't the same as the Jets offense from last year. So you can't take a guy like Aaron Rodgers for granted, So even though he has a new team, he did have a start off. I knew it. I freaking knew it. I knew it. He said, by the way, I was the one messing with the graphics, play producer for a second, LMAO. I knew it. Like it freaked me out. I wasn't looking at the bottom of my screen. And now that I saw it said one person, I'm like, Jesus, Johnny, you're giving me a headache. I'm like, I was thinking I got hacked or something. D-Rock jumping in saying, what's up, Adon? What's up, D-Rock, man? How you doing, brother? Good to see you. Thanks so much for joining the show. Guys, if you have any questions for me you want to ask and you're here live in the chat, please make sure you drop them. I'll try to get to them as best as I can as we go on with today's show. For those of you listening to us after the fact, please make sure you you tweet out to all of our links on all our socials if you guys have any questions for anybody on either Orange and Blue Network or on MHRT. I'm sure everybody here would be more than happy to answer any and all your questions if you're not able to join us for the live shows, because I get it. People have stuff to do. Some people work, some people have families. Me, I have my dog is somewhere in the back over there. He likes to snuggle underneath my Broncos pillows. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. The Broncos offense looked really good on Sunday, okay? And they took a lot of people by surprise. Excuse me, I had to take a sip. And I'm really glad to see that, because up until this game, the offense just wasn't, it was bringing up like memories of old, okay? You guys have heard me say it on this show plenty of times, and unfortunately, that's just what it was. And we finally took a step back. Now, we haven't had Bo Nix throw for a passing touchdown, which to me is, I'm still really excited for it every time I see like the ball going, he throws into the end zone. Don't get me wrong. I love the rushing touchdowns. I'm always happy when Broncos put up points, but I am still craving that first passing touchdown. I know my cousin and some of my Bear fans friends were pretty ecstatic seeing Caleb Williams throw for his first touchdown. Too bad it wasn't at home for him. It was in Indianapolis. but he's got his first touchdown in the books. Jaden Daniels has his first touchdown in the books. JJ McCarthy fans, unfortunately, you're gonna have to wait till next year to see him throw his first touchdown pass, which could be starting some controversy here, folks. Let me tell you, because the Minnesota Vikings, a team that a lot of us have had written off, is all of a sudden starting to be a lot more formidable. And the real question for that is, and unfortunately, we're getting off topic again, but is it Brian Flores' defense that's making them look great, or is it Sam Darnold at the helm making the Vikings look great? Now, to me, honestly, uh, if Sam Darnold, with his time with the Jets, it's almost like every quarterback, excuse me, was pretty much had a really bad time in New York, unless your name is Aaron Rodgers and your best friend's the offensive coordinator. But when he left and was under the tutelage of Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, was it? I don't know if it was, I think it was just last year, if I'm not mistaken, or his time he spent there. He learned a lot playing from, not just playing behind Brock Purdy, who was Mr. Irrelevant, but just learning under the Shanahan tree. And I think that what he learned in just that year in with the San Francisco, he brought all that stuff with him to Minnesota. And he's making Kevin O'Connell look really freaking good right now, And I think that's what a lot of coaches, when they bring in other quarterbacks, try to do. I think that's the same thing that Sean Payton tried to do with Zach Wilson when he got him from the Jets for some freaking reason, because maybe he's like, oh, I can save this kid type of thing. And also probably just to keep him in case the Broncos weren't able to get the quarterback that they wanted, and they would have had to settle for like a Brock Bowers or best available or something. But now that there are teams that are quarterback hungry, it's kind of interesting to see which NFL team is going to offer their backup as for picks. I've heard rumors about Russell Wilson getting traded to Miami. Miami's a very quarterback hungry team right now. I've heard Zach Wilson to the Dolphins. I've heard Russell Wilson to the Dolphins. Who's another team? The Jaguars. I know they have sunshine, but man, they're not looking good, man. They look pretty terrible. The Bengals, I mean, you're not going to replace Joe Burrow, and this isn't the first time the Bengals have been 0-3, but if they go 0-4, man, they're really looking. They're not looking good, man. They definitely are not looking good. But going back to the to the subject on hand, if you guys are new, I do this all the time. I just go off kilter, so I apologize. But I'm really excited to see what this Broncos offense can do against the Jets defense. Now, the Jets defense, as I said earlier, has not looked a lot as formidable as they did last year. Last year, it was just a bad day at the office for Russell Wilson from the beginning of that game to the end. So the one advantage that the Broncos have been able to have is when they get on a high, they're able to ride that high for up to 5 games that we've seen. So the important question, and the Broncos have destroyed Aaron Rodgers before. May I remind you of what year was that? I think it was the 2015 season when Green Bay came to Denver, and Green Bay was slated to, wreck Denver, and it was just a complete opposite. Probably one of Aaron Rodgers' worst days as a Packer, and the Broncos defense was just relentless that entire game, and they actually won it. So it was great to see our boys win that not just that game, but just the way that they won. And unfortunately for Denver, we are, as Broncos fans, we still have terrible memories of the Meadowlands. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people that are going to this game are probably going to have flashbacks sitting in there and watching the boys warming up and getting ready to play and just having flashbacks. So if that's you guys, just bear with us. Try to sit through it. Just remember it happened a long time ago. Hopefully it never happens again. The next time the Broncos go to a Super Bowl. Fingers crossed. But the defense, switching gears a little bit, just played. Actually, no. Let's go back. We have to talk about the running back situation. I almost forgot. I can't believe I almost forgot. Javonte Williams has totally not lived up. And we've talked about this last week and we're talking about it again. As you guys know, this management scheme office is not afraid to make moves or move people around, regardless of what your name is, regardless of how much money you're making. If you are not pulling your weight on this team, they are ready to move you. And I think that's probably where we are with Javonte, if I'm being honest with you guys. And I really hate to say it because I really do. Javonte was one of my favorite players coming into the season, uh, coming into the league, I should say. But ever since his injury, he hasn't been the same player. It's almost one of those kind of like, and I've heard this said before, and people still say it to this day, when a player comes back injured, especially after an injury like the one that Javonte suffered, it really they're never the same because it's kind of like they're afraid to go as hard as they did before and not get hurt again. And granted, the offensive line has regressed in terms of the running game, and it hasn't been the best. However, Jaleel McLaughlin and Bidet, because we have to say Bidet now, they have really shown out that even though the offensive line isn't great, they're still trying to make do with what we have. And they're putting up, obviously, it's not the greatest stats in the world, but they're trying to help out their quarterback. Because as much as we love to see Bo Nix run, we don't want our quarterback to be constantly put in that position where he's at the mercy of the linebackers as soon as he crosses the line of scrimmage. Because as you guys all know, linebackers hit like a truck, man. And even though they're supposed to pull back when a quarterback slides, if they're coming at you full on and you're not ready for it, even if you slide, helmets crash or clash or whatever. And it's not good, man. And we do not need our quarterback, knock on wood, to go on any sort of injury this year or anytime. So I predict, hopefully he turns it around. But the more I read about Javonte from other NFL analysts, and not just the ones that say bench him because he's not, um, the running back that we expected him to be, and it really sucks saying that, okay, because I really had high hopes for Javonte, but unfortunately he's kind of getting shown out by the other two running backs already on the team, and if the Broncos can see some value getting from him and trading him to a running back hungry team, then that's probably what they're going to end up doing. And if that does happen, hey, I wish him the best. I hope he goes to a team that has a better offensive line than we do, just to make something out of it. But that's just the direction I feel that Denver's going, unless Javonte finds that rejuvenation in him and he comes back strong, and I hope he does, because I really don't like seeing anybody from this team traded, regardless of how much I hate or like. I just like to start off with the team that we always have. Now, if the Broncos were 3-0, that's totally different, and they're building to be a Super Bowl contending team. Then that's totally different because then obviously sacrifices have to be made. However, we are not in that situation yet, folks. We are at 1-2 as of this recording. We should be a lot higher, I know, but unfortunately, and this is something that for some reason didn't click with me until I heard it on TV today. I don't remember where, and uh, it was just that Bo Nix, his first two challenges were against the Seahawks defense, who I for one took for granted. I thought they were going to be terrible, but we obviously see that they weren't. And the Steelers defense, who, I mean, they're just going out there and they're wrecking people, and their defense, along with the rejuvenated Justin Fields, are starting to make some noise. So if the Broncos do make a playoff run, that might be a team that they might have to encounter. Hopefully, praying for a better result by them, because a lot of things will be different. But it was just a bad day at the offense in terms of offensive work for the rookie. But now we're starting to see familiarity. The only thing I think that Bo Nix is missing, if I'm being honest with you guys, is just that he's missing his connection with Franklin. because yes, he does have. I think Lil Jordan Humphrey is probably the closest that comes to him in terms of having that in slot wide receiver. Obviously, Sutton is there. Obviously, Josh Reynolds are there, but they're mostly there to stretch out the field. And you need your wide receiver three. I know Franklin is still rusty. He's got a long way to go since training camp. So hopefully he comes back and he turns around, and him and Bo Nix can be that dynamic duo that people, excuse me, college fans know them to be from their days over at Oregon. So crossing my fingers on there. And Johnny Baki jumps in and says, Tyler Bidet. I thought it was bidet, like B-I, not buh. B-I, bidet, bidet, bidet. This is going to be the whole Vele thing all over again with Johnny, I swear. Johnny, I love you. But the defense was also the star of the show, because going into this game, everybody had the Bucks to beat the Broncos, and in some cases, it was supposed to be Baker Mayfield throwing bombs all over the place, and that was the complete opposite. Shout out to Patrick Surtain for just shutting down Mike Evans. Yes, Chris Godwin got a touchdown in, but that was just because of a really bad Javonte Williams fumble, which, by the way, is definitely something that the Broncos have to clean up, because they cannot give the ball away. And it kind of you cannot put the defense in a bind like that. You cannot give the other team momentum. If it wasn't for that fumble, the Broncos more than likely probably shut out the Bucks or hold them to like a field goal or something. So that was almost a given for the Bucks, and it helped them save a little face. The rankings, the Broncos going into this game, they were ranked 29th or 30th, like that, somewhere around there, and they jumped all the way up to 22nd. So if they can beat the Jets, which I'm pretty sure they can, because they've beaten Aaron Rodgers before, regardless of what shade of green he wears, then they'll definitely be making some noise. Now, I will say that the thing that sucks is the Chargers are beat up, and I only say that because I always feel that if you're going to beat a team, you want to beat them at their best, not when they don't have their best players out there or their best quarterback out there. And yes, I know that the Broncos beat the Chargers in the second game without Justin Herbert, and a win is a win. I totally get it, and beating your AFC West rival is great. However, would you guys feel the same way if, when the Broncos beat the Chiefs last year, if that wasn't Patrick Mahomes? Like, if Patrick Mahomes actually sat out because he had the flu, like, don't get me wrong, I would have still been as excited. I would have still been happy that the Broncos finally beat the Chiefs, but there would have just been that small amount of, well, it wasn't with Patrick Mahomes. So I got to give him credit for at least going out there and trying, I guess you could say, even though he definitely didn't look like his old self. And it'll be interesting to see in the first matchup with the Chiefs coming up soon if the Broncos can do it again. So Johnny comes in and he says, does signing Quan Alexander really fill the hole left by Alex Singleton, in my opinion? That's a great question, Johnny. To be honest with you, I'm trying to think of Quan Alexander's like his career in my head. For some reason, it doesn't come fully. And I want to say he's going to try his best. And, coming into a whole new defensive scheme under Vance Joseph is probably going to be a work in itself. We might not see anything immediate from Quan his first game with against the Jets. It might take a game or two, but I hope he comes to as close as what Alex brings to this team. Now, obviously, in every single bad thing that happens, there's always a little bit of light in terms of, trying to see the brighter side of things. So while Alex is recuperating, he can probably, by the end of the season, if the Broncos defense, and this is if, it's hypothetical, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if the Broncos defense regresses and it's because of Alex Singleton, then he can definitely bring that to the table and say, hey, you guys need me. So when it comes time for a contract, that they pay him the money just to say, hey, I'll be honest with you guys, I really wish that Honey Bear stayed, because I thought him and Singleton really played great off each other. and I thought that maybe Alex might suffer in his first year without Honey Bear, but he has pretty much shown that he can do it. And unfortunately, 3 weeks in, he got hurt, and it really sucks. And out of all the injuries, it had to be a freaking ACL. And I wish him the best. I hope he heals quick, and I hope he's ready to come back next year, just as hungry as he was this year. And I'm forgetting the name of the other guy that they brought in, but whichever one of those guys wants to have a competition to be the best, whether they're starting or in a rotational linebacker position, they have big shoes to fill. That's what I'm going to say. I don't think either one of them will be great enough to surpass what Singleton does, because Singleton is a monster at inside linebacker. But hey, what's that old saying? Impression is the best form of flattery, or something like that. So I hope they do their best, Johnny. We have another question here from Shai Vargas. Shai, thank you so much for joining the show, my friend. It's great to see you. He says, how do you feel about this game this week? Now, when you talk about this game, are you talking about the Jets? Okay, let's talk about the Jets. And just to kind of going back, I don't know, remember how much we talked about Patrick Surtain. I'm sorry, I'm an old man. I forget stuff all the time. But again, shout out to PS2, shout out corner. Brandon Johnson finally going out there, getting that really beautiful interception. And he also had the fumble recovery against Kate Otto. And I mean, it felt really good, because the safety position was the one thing that we were really worried about going into the season. And, and Johnson having that injury was, kind of really worrisome. So it's great to see that he can go out there and do his job. Riley Moss had a much better day at the office than he did last week and maybe the week before that. But PS2, I mean, the secondary is just freaking fabulous. And as we were talking about just a few minutes ago, the inside linebacker position is definitely going to be something to watch. Now, if Quan Alexander, and the other gentleman that keeps forgetting because I'm old, if they don't work out and the Broncos start winning games, I guess the real question is going to be is, do the Broncos go out and trade for an inside linebacker? Just to kind of keep the defense afloat. If Bo Nix starts to really pick it up and he's throwing for touchdowns, and the Broncos start winning games and they start being a formidable team in the AFC West. But in terms of the Jets, let me see. I just want to see who we have picked. Well, me and Ty both have the Broncos winning this game at MetLife. So, and by the way, so glad I was wrong about my prediction. As you guys heard me say before, when it comes to saying that I think the Broncos, when I pick these teams and whenever I say that the Broncos are going to lose and they win, totally happy for them. I even had a drink for them. So make sure you guys have a drink for them as well. But I'm really excited for this game. I really am, because, don't get me wrong, Geno Smith, I'll die on the hill when I say he got super lucky, man. He really did. If the Broncos would have played that defense in the second half like they did that first half, and they don't give him that run or that really lucky ass throw to Charbonnet, or hell, even the Kenneth Walker runs, they more than likely win that game. Especially if they would have gotten the ball back to see what Bo Nix can do under pressure under 2 minutes. In that Steelers game, I mean, Justin Fields was only held to a touchdown, so it could have been a whole lot worse, and I'm really grateful for that. So, and then as we saw in week 3 against Tampa Bay. Now, granted, Tampa Bay didn't have Vita Vea and they were missing other players. It totally showed. That's more than likely why the Broncos offensive line didn't have such a bad day at the office as intended against that Tampa Bay defensive line. But at the end of the day, this is a next man league. So if the next man behind you can't do it, hey, there's a reason why you got a spot and a 53-man roster out of hundreds of other players that tried out during the preseason. So when it's your time to go, man, you got to go and show them that you deserve a spot on that team. And if you fail, regardless of what position you're in, then hey, then maybe your ass needs to go and get replaced by somebody else in the waiver wire or practice squad. Even, that's just how it is. But to answer your question, Shy, I know I'm getting a little off topic. Sorry about that. But yeah, I feel great. I think the Broncos can beat the Jets. I really do. Uh, aside from the 49ers game, they played the Titans, and the Titans are just, I'm pretty sure they're probably regretting firing Mike Vrabel. Don't get me wrong. I know Mike Vrabel had his faults, but when he was a coach, the Titans were never this bad. They were never 0-3 bad. Will Levis just kind of looks like he doesn't know what he's doing out there. That really ugly throw he threw to give the Bears their first win was terrible. I've heard from a lot of people that the Bears should be 0-3, and they probably should. And then he just got lit up by the Packers this past week. So, and the Jets pretty much just kind of used him as a bounce back game. And then they used the Patriots last week as another bounce back game, a division game. Usually the division games are supposed to be tougher. I was expecting New England to give the Jets a run for their money. I wasn't expecting them to have Brissett literally lay down over. And it's kind of crazy because Jacoby went toe-to-toe with Seattle's defense, and they looked formidable as hell. And then Brissett went in there and kept the game close. And the Panthers, the Patriots almost won that game. And then the Jets come to town and they get shellacked by Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, it's kind of like one of those things. It's like make it make sense type of things, and it really doesn't make any sense. It's freaking weird. But he also asked, do you think the Broncos will the Broncos offensive line be better? And Shai also asked, how can we stop Aaron Rodgers? So as you guys heard me say earlier, the best way to stop Aaron Rodgers and the way they stopped him before is pass rush. And that's really how you stop any great quarterback, regardless of what your name is or what team you play for. We saw it, as you guys heard me state earlier, with Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they shut down Patrick Mahomes. Pass rush, pass rush, pass rush. You make the quarterback make either bad decisions or bad throws, and you let your secondary and your linebackers at that, do the work, get the ball back. Now, the big thing, the keys for the Broncos to win this game against the Jets is obviously the pass rush, as I said. Punish Aaron Rodgers for making mistakes. If he makes bad throws, intercept them. If he fumbles the ball, grab it and turn it over. And when that happens, the Broncos offense cannot punt the ball back to Aaron Rodgers, because the last thing you want to do is give him another chance to fix his mistake. You don't want to do that against any veteran quarterback, especially a guy like Aaron Rodgers, because he will make you pay for it. We've seen that before. So that's the main thing that needs to happen. The Broncos, even if obviously field goals are good, but you don't also want to field goal your way. I mean, actually, let me take that back, because the first week was between the Steelers and the Falcons. It was all field goals. So, and one of the Texans games, if I'm not mistaken, same thing, was also Kai Fairbairn had like 25, 26 freaking points as a kicker. So you really don't want to rely on Will Lutz. And by the way, shout out to Will Lutz, who won offensive special player of the week, if I'm not mistaken. I saw the highlight picture. Congratulations to Will Lutz. Great kicker. Totally redeemed himself. Knock on wood. Hasn't missed yet. But a road victory, especially another one, would do such great wonders for this Broncos team. Because as you guys can see, just winning this game alone, I mean, just look at the wave of emotion. I wish I could have been there. It kind of like lifts up spirits, because going into this game, I mean, Broncos were 0-2. We were already trying to figure out which finger to blame. That finger just keeps spinning around, and it's like, it was your fault. No, it was his fault. No, it was his fault. No, it was his fault. It was the offense. It was Bo Nix. It was Sean Payton. It was going everywhere. And that's what the Broncos don't need right now. We don't need a finger to point at. We don't need a reason as to why the team is bad. I told everybody at the beginning of the season to just BREATHE, breathe. And when you breathe and relax and you focus your mind on the S you're doing, then you get results like this. The Broncos defense totally shut down Baker Mayfield, took away his two best weapons, sacked him 7 times. Now, the Jets' offensive line has regressed, I want to say. It hasn't been good. And if you go back and watch that game against the 49ers, Nick Bosa made it a really bad day at the office. I mean, they were putting pressure, him and Leonard Floyd were putting pressure on Aaron Rodgers. And even though Aaron Rodgers only threw, what was it? I think just 1 interception, and it really wasn't all his fault. It was just past the wide receivers. Even that hurts a quarterback's confidence. And that's how you beat Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers shows up to play chess. You have to beat him at that, or whatever weird game goes on in his head, whatever he took to play the game. The guy's kind of weird. Not going to lie to you. But as Shai says here, Bo Nix needs to show up. He needs to continue showing up to kind of play off of your comment there, Shai. He needs to continue showing up. There's no way that Bo can go backwards. He's already elevated himself into a level that he knows that if he just puts his mind to it, that he can be the quarterback that Sean Payton envisions him to be. And basically, let's be honest, it's the quarterback that Sean Payton needs him to be, because it's his ass on the line if he isn't. I mean, who are we kidding here? But I, for one, think that if the Broncos stick to their game plan, which is Bo Nix and the running game, whichever one of those running backs is really putting in the work, continue to do that. Wear out the Jets defense. As I said earlier, the Jets defense is not as formidable as last year. Sauce Gardner, good cornerback, really good. Probably up there with Patrick Surtain, maybe. So Courtland Sutton is probably not going to be your number one option to go to if Sauce is going to be on his tail, which I'm guessing he is. And even if Courtland lines up on the other one, their cornerback too, I forget his name, but he's also pretty good. Maybe not Sauce Gardner good per se, but he's a good cornerback. So the Jets have good corners. So Bo Nix or Sean Payton at that, the offense have to find a way to get the ball in between if the long ball is not going to be there. And this isn't a time for Bo Nix to play hero ball. So unless he doesn't have to, he really shouldn't try the corners unless there's a wide opening, But the Broncos can definitely win this game. Okay. Let me just tell you that. Do not let the Jets' last 2 wins fool you. As you guys have heard me say before, if you guys are just jumping in, it's the first one. It was against the Titans, and the one was against a New England team that just kind of looked like they just started playing the day before. Shai also comes in and he says, do the Jets got a pass rusher? They actually do have a pass rusher. They just haven't paid him yet, and hopefully they don't decide to pay Hassan Reddick until after Sunday. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Jets traded for Hassan Reddick, if I'm not mistaken, and Reddick is in a contract dispute with the Jets, and he has said he will not suit up. He will take the fines. I forget what astronomical number the fines are for him every game or every time he doesn't go to practice or do anything with the team affiliation. So and this was a hot take when I said it. I'm pretty sure I said it. I don't know if I said it on this show or on the Orange and Blue pre or post game, but I know I said this on air. I wouldn't be surprised, or actually I would be surprised, and I would really be shocked and will probably agree with if the Broncos reached out and got Hassan Reddick. Now, I know what a lot of people are going to say. The Broncos don't have a lot of cap space, all that good stuff. That might be true. However, we have seen if I'm not mistaken, to me anyway, in my own personal opinion, the GM's job is to kind of maneuver the money around. And if you don't have money for one thing, then you find a way to move it around to make money for that. Because what you don't want is you don't want to end up like Jerry Jones's Cowboys, who spend their money on just all their money on two people and expect those two people to go out there and win your championship. That's not how it works. Okay. And when you do something like that, then you get a guy like Derrick Henry who just runs right through you for the opposing team. And that's the main thing everybody's been talking about since Sunday is the fact that Jerry Jones could have signed Derrick Henry, but he didn't want to pay him. And Derrick Henry went on and say, well, I wanted to play for Baltimore anyway, but he lives in Texas. He has Texas roots. It would have made so much sense to keep him as a Cowboy. And because Jerry Jones was too good for his own britches, he decided to let him go sign with the Ravens. And now the Cowboys have what? Old man Zeke and Dottle, I think his name is. They don't even have Tony Pollard anymore. He went to Tennessee. So they really don't have anybody. So if the Cowboys wanted a running back to make some noise, if they pick up some momentum, they're going to have to trade for one. But that's a whole different other situation. Johnny Baki jumping in and saying Reddick so far fined almost $3 million for not playing. So I'm pretty sure in a hypothetical situation, if the Broncos were able to acquire the services of one Hassan Reddick from the Jets, I'm pretty sure that the Broncos could work out a situation to pay him. Now, the only thing that scares me about this is the last time the Broncos paid a lot of money to a pass rusher, it didn't work out. It was a total waste of money, and that was Randy Gregory. And they stole him from the Cowboys. Stole. And they paid him a crap ton of money, and we got nowhere the guy that we saw in Dallas. We thought we were going to get the next DeMarcus Ware because DeMarcus Ware also came from the Cowboys system. But DeMarcus Ware is a Hall of Famer. So, and is a Super Bowl champion. And he's part of the reason why the Broncos defense that year was a Super Bowl championship team along with Von Miller. So that's the player we thought we were going to get. Unfortunately, we didn't get it. It sucks. But that's the risk you take with getting any player, folks. Okay. Regardless of what position, that's just how business works. And you really cross your fingers that the player you're trading for or paying a lot of money for continues to be that player when they came to that team afterwards. And there must be like a curse or something because a lot of these players, once they get these big money contracts, regardless of what position they play, they start to kind of either not so much regress, but they really just start having more than one bad day at the office, and it kind of starts making you scratch your head like, was this guy really worth the amount of money we pay for? Look at the Broncos with Russell Wilson. Even better, Deshaun Watson with the freaking Browns. Looks nothing like the quarterback he was when he was with the Texans. And so far is slated to be, quote unquote, the biggest draft trade in NFL history. Not draft, but biggest trade bust in NFL history. Johnny Bach. Oh, before I forget, Yuri Musgrove saying Denver Broncos for life. Woo! That's right, baby. Broncos for life. Hasta el último respiro. Till my last breath. For those of you that don't know Spanish. Johnny says, would you rather add T. Higgins or Mark Andrews in free agency this next offseason if could pick one for the Broncos? T. Higgins? I thought T. Higgins, this might sound stupid. I thought he was a wide receiver. Unless I don't know. My mind's a little screwed up on that, but that's a good question, Johnny. Now, Dulcich has not won me over. Let's be honest with that, folks. Since he became a Bronco, he has but maybe like a couple of flashes in the pan, but so has Drew Lock, and so has a lot of other players that have had flashes in the pan. Noah Fant had flashes in the pan where he looked like he could be the next big tight end, and unfortunately it didn't pan out. But if I were George or Sean Payton, the only thing that doesn't make me pick T. Higgins right away is because I saw him on Monday night. And a lot of people were expecting more out of him. He did run his routes, but the one thing that's really hard when you come back from a hamstring injury is just like route running, you know. Even though Jamar Chase kind of took the corners, kind of, attracted the double team. T. Higgins only saw like three targets, if I'm not mistaken. The other guy for the Bengals, Iservanas, was the pretty much the second star of the show behind Jamar Chase. And I know that because Iservanas won me my fantasy this week. I picked him up, and I was actually going to drop him for somebody else when I heard that T. Higgins was coming back. But I don't know. Maybe I know there's a dispute with Higgins and contract and stuff, so that might be maybe why. But at the same time, you really want to put out some tape if you're going into free agency, so you have other teams, so you can bargain with for a big contract next year if he decides not to stay with Cincinnati. But out of those two, sure. I mean, wide receiver, I don't think the Broncos have an issue with wide receiver. It's the reason why we unfortunately got cut Tim Patrick. So I don't want to say unless the Broncos do something with Cortland Sutton where they ship him or he decides to retire or something like that, and they need a wide receiver, then I can see a T. Higgins in a Sean Payton offense / Vic Lombardi. So why not? But I personally think that tight end right now is a really, really big issue. And that's not just for the Broncos, folks. It's around the league. Like a lot of teams are really struggling with finding tight end play. Cole Kmet barely found his quarterback in week 3, and he finally put up more points than he did with Justin Fields last year, where he was constantly being his number one target. So the tight ends for a lot of fantasy players so far this season has been really rough. I'm struggling to find one. I just picked up another one today. My other one is Njoku, David Njoku, but he's injured. So he's still day to day in terms of when he's going to come back for the Browns. And I just picked up, and you guys might hate me for this, but Tyler Conklin is the tight end I picked up. And the only reason I picked that, and I'm going to cut a little segment with that we normally do with Ty the Fantasy Guy. The only reason I picked him is because if the Broncos, if Pax Surtain is going to follow around Garrett Wilson like I think he is, and Riley Moss and the others are going to be tied with Lazard, somebody's got to catch the ball. So Conklin might be the guy that kind of, if the Broncos defense does regress, that's more like a drop-off type of thing, So don't hate me for it. I'm not saying I want the Jets to win. I just want my fantasy team to win. So if he can put up points and the Broncos still win a game, hey, even beautiful, like this week. Because I'm facing my brother. So I want to be my brother. But no, I would probably say Mark Andrews, Johnny, because I think Mark Andrews in free agency, just having a tight end that can bond with Bo Nix while the Broncos continue to maybe find one in the draft, undrafted or whatnot. I think that's really what the Broncos need. Because right now, like I said, Dulcich, I don't really have any faith in him. I know Krull is a name we haven't mentioned in a while. I think he's hurt, if I'm not mistaken. But Uri says, so question, are we going to make the playoffs? This is a really hard question to answer, Yuri. I hope I'm saying your name right. Thanks for joining the show, by the way. It's kind of hard to say. If the Broncos can get a victory over the Jets, that's another statement win because you'll already have beaten Baker Mayfield, who was one of the hottest quarterbacks going into this year, and you'll have beaten Aaron Rodgers again. So beating those two quarterbacks puts their name back into the playoff contention. Like, hey, don't write us out. We're not out of this yet. When you beat bad teams like your Jacksonville Jaguars or Bryce Young with the Panthers, or hell, even the Raiders aren't looking like a great team right now. When you beat bad teams, while they do count it as the win column, it's also the other side of the ball where you have to look like, well, when you get to the playoffs, you're not going to play bad teams. You're going to play the best of the best, So whether you're a wild card team or you're a first round seed, it only takes one loss and you go home. And that's something you can't afford. So the Broncos still have a long way to go. They did, as much as I hate to say this, they did catch a break because the Raiders are playing bad football right now because they should have beaten the Panthers and instead they got their asses handed to them. The Chargers are, for some reason, them and injuries just go hand in hand, man. So um, Justin Herbert is still questionable to see if maybe he even plays against Kansas City, so they might be handing them a free win. I know that the Chargers tackles got hurt, which is why TJ Watt and the Steelers defense finally got an 8. And Taylor Heineke he just got fed to the wolves, man. But what else could John Harbaugh do? And that's going to be a real test for Harbaugh, is to kind of see, for any coach, especially a guy like Harbaugh, is to kind of see what you can do when your back's against the wall and you don't have your best players. Can you make do with what you picked before them and pull out a win? Okay. So, but that's a whole he did it with J.K. Dobbins. I mean, J.K. Dobbins looked like a beast relived. He unfortunately didn't have it against the Steelers because the Steelers have a tough defense, but he could be their saving grace while their team gets healed. And the Chiefs, I'm sorry, the Chiefs should not be 3-0. If it wasn't for a toe and 2 ref calls, one call that shouldn't have been called, I'm gonna stick with that, and one that should have been called but wasn't, we'd be talking about an 0-3 Chiefs team right now. We really would. So, and that's a whole other freaking argument. But I'm hoping that the Broncos make the playoffs, Yuri, to answer your question. I really do, because even if they don't win, at least they made a goal. And a goal is to make it to the playoffs. Now, the playoffs are a whole different beast. We saw that last year. You know, Tampa Bay, who should have gotten beaten out by Philly, blew them out the door. Green Bay, that should have lost to the Cowboys at home, blew them out the door. So playoffs are a whole different animal, man. It gives a whole new meaning to the whole any given Sunday. So I hope the Broncos can make it. I hope they can shock a lot of people. I just want this team to get as far as they can. So, and so when the furthest they get is anything before the Super Bowl, they draw a line in the sand and say, next year, we're going past that. If they only make it to the wild card round and get bumped off next year, we're going past that. If they only get to the divisional the next round, we're going past that. If they go to the championship round the following year, the AFC championship, we're going past that. Get past every single line as far as this team can go until they're hoisting a Lombardi trophy, and then they challenge themselves to do it again. That's what I'm putting out there. Shai Vargas says, do you think the Jets got a good offensive line? You know, Shai, I'm not sure if I answered this or if you asked it before. Um, so I just want to make sure I didn't skip it. I don't think it's great, but with Aaron Rodgers, I mean, it's not as bad as like what the Bears would have per se, and it's not great either because otherwise Aaron Rodgers would be lighting up the field with Garrett Wilson and Lazard. So they only had one really great game so far, and that was against the Patriots. But the Patriots are just they're figuring a lot of stuff out. So don't be surprised if that happens again when they meet up in week later on this season. I forget what week they play again. They're going to be playing in New England, but it's pretty much going to be the same thing, if not probably a worse beating than that. But I don't think it's good because, as you heard me say, the 49ers defense really had Aaron Rodgers' number beat. And the Jets defense couldn't stop if McCaffrey would have played in that game, the 49ers blow the Jets out. They honestly do. But shout out to Robert Mason, who did a fantastic job holding up the line. But if that was Christian McCaffrey out there, they totally blow the Jets out the water. Wouldn't have even been close. Yuri jumping in, he's saying, so do you think we going to still stick with Sean Payton? Yeah, I think we are. Listen, Sean Payton has his moments, okay? He's not going to be Andy Reid, loved by everybody, or he's not going to be Bill Belichick, loved by everybody. However, we could be worse. Okay. By worse, I'm saying you could be what Jacksonville has. You could have what I'm going to say Carolina, because until I see more from the Red Rifle, which, by the way, I know we're going a little bit off topic and we're going past a little bit our bedtime. So I hope you guys still stick around. Hopefully you do. Johnny, please don't be upset that I'm going overtime. Um, but what happened to Bryce Young? And this is what I think it was Johnny who said this on the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast, which you guys should tune into every Tuesday at 8 o'clock Central Time. Um, but that's what you don't do. That's what you don't do. You do not bench your starting, because first of all, you've destroyed his confidence, as Johnny said so. And I wholeheartedly agree with him. So there's no way that if the Red Rifle gets hurt, you bring him back. There's no way you bring him back and expect him to be. It's pretty much the Zach Wilson thing all over again. That's what it is. It's the whole Zach Wilson thing. When they benched him last year and they were just doing this whole carousel of quarterback. Like, you cannot play with people's emotions like that. Okay. Like, that is not cool. So you've basically ruined him. You don't have any tape on him to convince other teams to take him off of your hands to trade with before the trade deadline. There'd be not even the Dolphins. I don't even think they would be crazy enough. They would much rather play with Skylar Thompson or whoever they have in the wings than to trade for Bryce Young. Because if the Carolina Panthers don't want him and don't trade him, why should they? Why should anybody give the Panthers a draft capital that isn't anything lower than like a 5th or 6th or 7th round pick for Bryce Young? Like why? It really doesn't. So they've ruined that, man. Unfortunately, don't get me wrong. I know why the Panthers did what they did, because they don't want to have a winless season. I totally get it. But at the same time, I don't think that's why they bought Canales in for. I'm 100% sure they bought Canales in to try to fix Bryce Young, to try to fix what supposedly is their mistake with the number 1 pick. And you can't tell me that after 3 games you can come away to with the decision, or 2 games, I'm sorry, because he didn't play in the 3rd, that Bryce Young was the problem. And of course, Andy Dalton's going to go out there and light it up. He's a veteran. He knows how to make do with what they have. So don't get me wrong. I love what he did to the Raiders, because I love watching the Raiders lose, especially watch them get blown out. But the thing that really broke my heart is watching at the end of that game, Bryce Young was standing out by the tunnel, and he was literally saluting his team as they were going in. I don't know if that was for halftime or was at the end of the game. He didn't have to do any of that. He could have been the first person in the locker room, like Aaron Rodgers usually likes to do. But like, if that doesn't tell me commitment and just heartbreak, like, I don't know what will. And right now he's giving me like Trey Lance vibes, because I'm also in the same boat with Trey Lance, just like the same thing. And that was coming from Kyle Shanahan, and just kind of giving up on him and shipping him out to the Cowboys, who's what is he, quarterback 3 behind Cooper Rush in Dallas. So I just I just don't get it. But to answer your question, Yuri, I know I'm getting off topic, and again, I'm sorry, but it's just like I'm trying to give credit to where credit is due. There's a reason why the Broncos traded for Sean Payne's contract. They gave up a draft pick, a high draft pick at that, because they traded Bradley Chubb to the Dolphins for that late 1st round, and then they gave it to the Saints. So nowadays, draft capital goes pretty far, and probably more than money, I guess you could say in some cases, because if you can strike gold with the right player that can elevate your team, you can trade that for a Lombardi trophy. That's a win situation, baby. And that's really and I think we're past the narrative now where we want Sean Payne to recreate the New Orleans Saints 2.0. I heard somebody say that. I don't know where, but it was just like, dude, Sean Payne's not here to recreate shit. None of that, man. because he'd be here forever trying to find the next Drew Brees or Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or whatever. He might have it with Bo Nix. Hopefully he does. But he took a gamble when he convinced the owners to get rid of Russell Wilson and take an $85 million cap hit. Now, that alone in itself can come back to bite the Broncos in the ass, because if the Broncos pick up steam and start to become a playoff contender team, what do playoff contender teams do before the trade? Before the trade deadline? They fill in whatever weaknesses they have. If inside linebacker is a weakness, they fill it. If offensive line is a weakness, they fill it. If wide receiver is a weakness, they fill it. Tight end, cornerback, safety, whatever. Whatever it is that they need to do to sacrifice draft capital for, then they'll do it if it gives them a chance to win a Super Bowl. But first, the Broncos have to get there, and they only have 5 weeks left to do it. So, and I just don't I just don't get it. I really do hope so, because as much as you may not like or hate Sean Payton, just remember the next head coach, because unfortunately Payton's not going to be here forever, could be worse. And so far since 2015, we've been through a good couple of head coaches. You had your Vance Joseph, who is your defensive coordinator, and to this day, I don't know how you do not find that awkward as hell. You had him. You could have had Kyle Shanahan, but after Kubiak left, then you had your Vic Fangio, who, if he was just on defense, would have been fan-freaking-tastic. And then you had your Nathaniel Hackett, who was, I want to say, was it John Elway who hired him? Who was probably maybe was hanging out with Aaron Rodgers one day and took whatever crap he takes. It's like, hey, who'd be a head grade coach? Nathaniel Hackett. Oh man. But and then we end up with you know what? And to shout out to Joe Rosberg, who was the interim coach. I wouldn't have minded if Rosberg would have stayed the coach, if the Broncos wouldn't have been able to get Sean Payton from the Saints. And a lot of people were kind of wondering or thinking that maybe Rosberg could be the next coach for the Broncos, because for those 3 games, because I think Hackett got fired after the Rams Christmas disaster. I mean, that was just terrible. So but so far, since week 3 of last year, folks, the Broncos have turned it around, and they've only had really one bad game since then, and that was the New England game. That was a game on Christmas last year when they should have won, and they wet the bed, and they didn't win. And I'm not even counting whatever the hell that was that they threw out their week 18 in a meaningless game that they lost, by the way. I have no idea what the hell that is. D-Rock jumping in and saying the Panthers are a quagmire of an organization. Yes, they are. Johnny Baki jumping and saying Bryce Young so far has been embarrassing, but benching him this early in his career just ruins him for the rest of his career. Me and you are so on point about that. Polar Knight saying, I love this podcast. It is the perfect evolution of beard growth. Well, thank you, Polar Knights. First of all, thank you so much for joining the show. I hope you're enjoying the Broncos Talk After Dark. Hey, it could be a new segment. We'll put that in the maybe pile. I'm going to shave my beard before I head to Denver next month. That's why I haven't done it yet, because my beard grows back pretty full, and I don't want to shave it twice. So I'm going to see how long I can grow it out until either, well, I'm single, so I don't have a woman to worry about. But, unless somebody at HR or whatever says, hey, you got to shave your beard. So I don't know. But we'll see. What happens? Johnny also jumping in and saying it isn't awkward as there are 0 defensive players who were here when VJ was head coach left on the team today, which is pretty true, because Vance Joseph, there were still some key players. Hell, DeMarcus Ware maybe could have played another year. He still said he had some tank in the gas, but unfortunately, it was just kind of like we were starting to see the writing on the wall. And don't get me wrong, DeMarcus Ware, if you follow him on Instagram like I do, that man is jacked. He is fit. He is like Shannon Sharp fit. Does crazy exercises every day to stay in shape. And you can almost put a pad and helmet on him and tell him to go out there and play at least a quarter, and he would more than likely look like the DeMarcus Ware of old. But I mean, it's just like to kind of wrap things up here, folks. Uh, uh, I mean, the Broncos are going to be all right. When is it going to be all right? We have yet to see. This game was a definite step in the right direction. Okay. So let me repeat this because I said this already earlier. I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. If the Broncos do not win this game for whatever reason, hopefully it's not because of some ref BS, just breathe. Remember, we are still towards the end beginning of the season, heading into the middle of the season, which is kind of crazy, by the way, because week 1 felt like it was just yesterday. So progression takes time. You know, what's that old saying? Rome wasn't built in a day. All right. The team that is the Chiefs that are painting everybody's behind, that wasn't built in a day. That took time. And they're starting to kind of wear out their welcome. I don't want to hear any more of this dynasty crap that I'm hearing from the NFL analysts. No, miss me with that. Okay. But if the Broncos want to, I don't want to say salvage because they're not in a salvageable season situation yet. They need to make some noise. Okay. The Panthers, with their 1 win, made some noise, even though it comes at a quarterback change, which I don't agree for. All right. The Minnesota Vikings, 3-0, made some noise. Plenty of other teams are out there making the Washington Commanders being 2-1. And they lost to the Buccaneers, who the Broncos beat, made some noise. So the best way to get noticed in this league is to make some noise. Go out there and beat teams that when everybody says you can't, you do. All right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's show. We're going to start wrapping things up here. Polar Knight saying, hope you don't mind me staying here. It is this or talk to the what? Mrs. Polar Knights, I'm sure appreciates you, man. Hey, be happy you have somebody to talk to, man, because there are people out there who wish they be in your situation, regardless of what it is. Some people don't like being alone, man. Me, I've been single for more than I like to admit, so that's just how my life is probably going to play out, you know. So, but hey, I'm not really single. I have my dog who is weird sometimes, right, Scruffles? Yeah, he's under my Broncos pillow somewhere. But guys, we're gonna me and my dog are gonna head out now because it's time for his walk. But guys, make sure if you're listening to us after the fact, please make sure you like and subscribe wherever it is you guys are listening to this show on Google, Apple, iTunes. Shout out to everybody on iHeartRadio. I haven't forgot about you. You guys are still awesome. I know there's 1 or 2 listeners out there. Shout out to my good friend Chris Hernandez, who is a big supporter of the show. Thank you so much, man. I'm trying to work out a schedule with him. We are going to bring him one of these days soon so you guys can meet him. He is great. One of the greatest people I've ever met here in Broncos country. That is named Johnny Baki Mundungus or Glenn Hauser. But guys, make sure you like and subscribe, comment everywhere you see on our visuals here for the Orange and Blue Network. This time I can do it because I know Johnny's not here freaking me out and making me think my computer's haunted. So make sure you guys like and subscribe. MHRT users, or for those people that don't know, we are simulcast on MHRT. Or if you're already in MHRT, make sure you subscribe and share, comment, or network like all of their visuals. This is a simulcast, as you guys know. We do a simulcast where we broadcast on both shows. So we do this and we're also on MHRT. So I'm on 2 shows at the very same time. I feel very special and I love saying that. I don't care how old I get, you know. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, it has been a blast talking to you, to all the viewers. And let me just say, whether you're thankful or lucky enough to watch us during the show or after the fact, always appreciate it. Oh, by the way, make sure you tune into the Broncos pregame show and the Broncos post-game show right after, because Johnny Baki is actually going to be on the MHRT network, if you guys haven't heard, and he is going to be calling the New York Jets Broncos game. I cannot wait to watch it and see it for myself. He's probably going to do one show, then be in the middle show, and then be in the other show. So it's going to be like Baki TV 24/7. You know, it's kind of like CNN, but with Johnny Baki on it. So if you love seeing that man sitting for as many hours as I do sitting on this chair playing video games, then you do not want to miss it. I certainly won't. So guys, make sure you tune in. Hit that live notification so you get live notifications when we go live on any and all of our shows. There are plenty of great content on this, on MHRT. As always, please continue to support any and all forms of Broncos media. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Adan Diaz, and this has been Broncos Talk on the Orange and Blue and MHRT networks. Jets are going to be grounded. They are going down. Woo! Let's go, baby. Broncos. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great night, later days, and as always, go Broncos.